Let's get started with Mantra Monday. So I'm going to get into it now, and I'm going to read the Sanskrit, and then I'm going to break it down word for word, the synonyms, and then I am going to read the purport, and then I'm going to offer whatever insights that I can into this, because this chapter is so named as the Opulence of the Absolute. So the idea is to give us a little bit of a glimpse into the greatness of the Creator, to the greatness of Bhagavan. So, you know, we'll say that. People say, oh, God is great. But it's nice to know how specifically He is great. And in Vedic culture or in Bhakti, you know, the Bhagavad Gita, this divine conversation, it's all about bringing us specifics, you know, nothing vague and nothing pie in the sky, because spiritual science is just that. It is a science. And the more we know, the more we become attracted, and the more easy it will be for us to leave this material world behind, because ultimately this is not our permanent home. It's not our real home. You know, while this is a sacred place because it is an offshoot of the Creator, still it is temporary. And of course, this temporal nature of the material world causes us a great amount of grief, because, you know, we don't really like change. We like things to be able to stay the same, right? You know, what does George Carlin say? They always change things you like. So our bodies are changing, our circumstances are changing, our finances are changing, our health is changing, all these things are changing. So the purpose of Mantra Monday is to give a lift to our week and to put things into perspective, you know, as to who we really are, and to kind of peel back the layers in the context of Bhakti Yoga and this particular path. All right. So this one says, purodhasāṁ mukhyam viddhi Pṛthā bṛhaspatim senānīnām aham skandaḥ sarasām asmi sāgaraḥ. So beautiful, the poetry. So I'm going to read that again. Purodhasāṁ mukhyam viddhi Pṛthā bṛhaspatim senānīnām aham Skanda sarasām asmi sāgaraḥ. Okay, so the word for word translation is purodhasāṁ, of all priests. Cha, also, mukhyam, the chief. Mam, me, viddhi, understand. Pṛthā, O son of Pṛthā, or Pṛthā, actually. No, it's Pṛthā. He says Pṛthā, but it means son of Pṛthā. I'll explain that in a second. Bṛhaspatim, Bṛhaspati, senānīnām, of all commanders. Aham, I am. Skanda. Kārttikeya, sarasām, of all reservoirs of water. Asmi, I am. Sāgaraḥ, the ocean. Translation from Bhagavad Gita as it is by Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief Bṛhaspati. Of generals, I am Kārttikeya, and of bodies of water, I am the ocean. So I'll repeat that. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief Bṛhaspati. Of generals, I am Kārttikeya, and of bodies of water, I am the ocean. Purport. Indra is the chief demigod of the heavenly planets and is known as the king of the heavens. The planet on which he reigns is called Indraloka. Bṛhaspati is Indra's priest, and since Indra is the chief of all the kings, Bṛhaspati is the chief of all priests. And as Indra is the chief of all kings, similarly Skanda, or Kārttikeya, the son of Pārvatī and Lord Śiva, is the chief of all military commanders, and of all bodies of water, the ocean is the greatest. These representations of Kṛṣṇa only give hints of Kṛṣṇa's greatness. So there is a lot to unpack here. There's a lot of personalities, and then there's my dog who's photobombing in the back. Noah, come here, buddy, come here. Noah likes to be on the live stream, so I think that was a hint. Come here, buddy. Say hello to your fans. This is Noah, everybody. This is him. This is the guy. This is the real star. And now he's going to give me a kiss. Yeah. Okay, he said hello to everyone. Yeah. Okay, rock star. There you go. Live stream wouldn't be complete without his appearance. Okay, so now let's get into it. All right. So last week, in last week's Mantra Monday, I actually talked about Indra. And I actually talked about Indra a few times because Indra appears a lot. He's a significant personality. But it's also to be noted that Indra is a post. Because, again, we're talking about things going on in this material world, and that things are temporary and that positions are temporary, so as it is, as it applies to the demigods. And the demigods are jivas who have performed cores and cores and cores and cores of pious activities. They're not ordinary individuals. However, you know, they have a desire, they have a material desire of a particular post or a particular position. Just like us, you know, they have dreams, and they are also appointed by Vishnu, the all-pervasive aspect of the Supreme Lord, to hold different posts of responsibility to help manage universal affairs. So, you know, they get to act out this desire. So Indra is the king of heaven, and at his disposal he has lightning and thunder and rain and winds and all these different things. Of course, here on the earth we're very dependent on the rain, and we're very dependent on the weather. So, in the cosmos, or in the hierarchy of the world, when you're talking about spiritual science, again, you know, no one is left bereft. If they are open to it, no one is left bereft in this world to be able to advance spiritually. And it is custom that a family, and certainly a heavenly family, would have a family priest. But in Indra's case, because we're talking about, you know, greater realms, we're talking about the heavens, the family priest is actually named Bṛhaspati. So Bṛhaspati, another name for Bṛhaspati, is Jupiter. So Bṛhaspati is the regent over the planet Jupiter, and Jupiter in Vedic cosmology and in Vedic astrology, you know, in Jyotish, you can examine where Jupiter is placed in your chart, is responsible for learning, higher learning, specifically the teachings of the guru, the teachings of the spiritual master. So guru means to kick out darkness. So I found a little something more about Bṛhaspati, because what's interesting in this verse is that when we get to the Sanskrit here, the way Bṛhaspati is being addressed is mukhyam. So mukhya actually means mouth, mukhya, or it means to speak. And so when I look this up, Bṛhaspati in Sanskrit means Lord of Sacred Speech. He is, again, the preceptor, you know, of the demigods. He supplies counsel. He is the master of sacred wisdom, of hymns, of rites, of, you know, special boons or charms, if you like. He is a Brahmin, and so he is, you know, the prototype, like I said in the beginning of this description of him, for the earthly counterpart of the family priest. He is attributed to him is the Rig Veda, which is considered to be the oldest Veda in the sacred books. Again, he is the regent of Jupiter. So I just thought this was really interesting that the word mukhyam is also a reference to Bṛhaspati. So when you start to get into the Srimad Bhagavatam, when you start to get into the graduate study of Bhakti Yoga, you will find that Bṛhaspati is a personality that appears often, because even though the demigods are enjoying a longer span of life than we are here on the Earth planet, on Indraloka, they have challenges as well. You know, it's true they have got greater wealth, greater facility, greater bodily beauty, and so on, but they are always at a tug of war with the asuras. So the demigods are the suras, right? They are basically devotees of the Lord. They are basically for the good. Yes, of course, they also have their self-serving motivations, like we all do, but basically they are on the side of good. The asuras, however, are not, and they are always trying to create mischief and are a great source of pain and distress throughout the universe, and certainly here on planet Earth. The asuras actually have their own planetary system. So the demigods often find themselves in need of counsel. They need help. And so Bṛhaspati is the person that they go to. So that is a little background on Bṛhaspati and his importance. Okay, so now the next part of this, he says, of generals I am Kārttikeya. So let's get into Kārttikeya a little bit. But if we want to get into Kārttikeya a little bit, then we need to get into his lineage, his parents. I pulled up this beautiful photo. This is an image of Kārttikeya. You can see Kārttikeya has 6 heads, and his carrier is a peacock. So essentially Kārttikeya is Kṛṣṇa, basically. So because Kṛṣṇa's paraphernalia, you know, his favorite, well, he has 2 favorite animals, is the peacock and also the cow. So Kārttikeya is the 2nd son of Lord Śiva and the goddess Pārvatī, or Shakti, or Durga, or Uma. She has many, many different names, you know, depending on how we are referring to her, you know, and her relationship with the jivas. But Lord Śiva, who I spoke about last week, is not an ordinary living entity. He is not an ordinary jiva. He is actually, he is an aspect of Kṛṣṇa. He does not have the full powers of a Vishnu tattva. So if Kṛṣṇa is milk, then Mahadev, Lord Śiva, would be buttermilk. He has, I believe, 88% of the powers that Lord Vishnu has, and of course he has the power to destroy the universe. He is known as Natyaraj, and he does that divine dance of destruction when it is time to wrap up this fantasy that we have going on down here, and when it is time for the living entities to go back into the body of Lord Vishnu and go into another cosmic sleep until the next recreation of the material universes in the material world, where the living entities can again pursue those dreams and fantasies that they have to act out here in this material world. So to wrap that thought up, basically, you know, until the point where you achieve liberation and you actually exit this material universe, the cycle of samsara, the cycle of birth and death and karma and pursuing these illusions, as it were, goes on again and again and again. Of course, when we take everything that we're doing and we dovetail it towards Kṛṣṇa, you know, in that divine consciousness, in the Bhagavad Gita earlier says, you know, what you eat, what you drink, what you think, what you give away in charity, the work that you do. If you think of me, you know, then you will come to me. So we don't have to feel despairing like, oh my God, I'm doomed, you know, I'm never going to get out of here. I'm doomed to go through the cycle again and again. No, we're not. the whole purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to show us many different ways of how we can unite our consciousness with the consciousness of that devotion, and to use everything that we're doing as a meditation. And in this way, it's a holistic thing where we can feel peaceful, blissful, and ultimately, go home. So that was a bit of a digression on who Kārttikeya and Lord Śiva is, but again, Kārttikeya, he's the second son of Lord Śiva and the goddess Pārvatī. He's also known by many names. So sometimes he is called Subramaniam, sometimes he is called Sanmukha, sometimes he is called Shadanana, he is called Skanda, he is called Guha. So he is considered to be the war god. So let me explain that. This is very interesting, actually. It's not exactly what we would think. He is an embodiment of perfection. He is a brave leader of the forces of the Lord, and he basically has 6 heads because his 6 heads correspond with his ability to be able to see in all directions. In other words, he's basically there to make sure that virtue is upheld. And these 6 heads are actually related to the 6 senses of the human being. This is very interesting. So everything, when you get into the cosmos and when you get into the worldview, from the Vedas and the Bhakti position, things are really operating at least 2 levels, at least. More levels than that, but at least 2 levels, because life is multidimensional. So we can say, oh, well, this just seems fantastic, but it's more than just symbology. It's actually alive. So the war imagery in the 6 heads of Kārttikeya indicate that if humans wish to lead themselves efficiently through the battle of life, they must always be alert, lest they are shown the wrong path by crafty people with the 6 demonic vices. So this is interesting. It's kind of a counterpart to the 6 deadly sins, right? The things that we're supposed to watch out for so we don't fall into this trap and ruin our lives. So the 6 vices, the 6 things we want to avoid, the 6 things that a yogi always wants to be aware of and not fall into is kama. So that is lust. So lust doesn't just necessarily apply to sex life, to sexual activity. Of course, we hear a lot about that in the news today. So many tragic and unfortunate things for pedophilia. That is a very, very graphic and very clear illustration of asuric or demonic qualities, related to kama or lust. But lust could also be lust for power, lust for money, or lust for objects. Okay. Now, the next thing would be krodha, anger. So anger is something that can make you lose your intelligence. When we become angry, our whole body is flooded with toxins, with poisons. You can actually feel it when you become angry. And what will happen in this case, and it's interesting, this progression, is that lust is the first thing, right? So the first thing is to control that. Because if you can't control your lusty desires and you can't get the thing that you're lusting after, what happens? You become angry. That's the next thing in the chain. And when you become angry, then you lose your intelligence, right? So we've seen that, or we've done it ourselves, where we've become angry, we've lost our temper, and then we've done something that we regret later. We've said things that we regret, we destroyed something, we broke something, we threw something, We got into a fight, maybe when we wound up in jail because the police had to come and break up the fight, so all these different things. Krodha, or anger, is definitely not the friend of anyone, and not the friend of a yogi. Of course, there are instances of transcendental anger that the sages display, but let's be honest, that's not us. Okay, so now moving on. Lobha, greed. So this is the other head of Kārttikeya, is there to watch out for that, right? Moha, passion. Madha, ego. And matsarya, jealousy. So, when we're talking about moha, we're talking about things that can consume you, not healthy things, not a healthy passion, for a positive activity. We're talking about things that are darker, that can pull you down. And then moda, Mada, it's Mada, not Moda. Mada, the ego, or the false ego. Okay, we all have an ego, we have a personality. But I'm talking about the false ego here, that pride, things that you do that you shouldn't be doing, but because you want to show how you're better, than everyone else or someone else, you're puffed up and you become arrogant. And that's also, pride goeth before the fall. And then matsarya, jealousy. Jealousy, that is a big one, something that we have to watch out for as well. Of course, jealousy usually means that you're not working on your own life and trying to fulfill your own desires. I mean, jealousy can be a motivator if you realize what it is and you realize that it is there to prompt you to actually work on yourself. But in general, jealousy is something that we need to stay far, far away from. Okay, and so then it adds here that Kārttikeya carries in one hand a spear, and in his other hand is always blessing devotees. His vehicle is a peacock, a pious bird that grips with its feet a serpent, which symbolizes the ego and desires of people. The peacock represents the destroyer of harmful habits and the conqueror of sensual desires. The symbolism of Kārttikeya thus points to the ways and means of reaching perfection of life. Kārttikeya, of course, is the brother of Ganesh. So you all are familiar with Ganesh. He is the elephant god. And of course, he is the scribe to Vedavyas. Ganesh is who helped write down the Vedas. So this is pretty awesome. So you'll see that in these opulences of the Absolute, there's always a beneficial, protective energy that is there. The Lord is always there somehow, to try and move us along on the path of liberation. And then the last thing that the Lord says he is, that we can think of, is the ocean. He says, of bodies of water, I am the ocean. So this is wonderful. So when we go to the beach, we can meditate on the water and remember that this vast body of water that sustains life on this planet, that is a whole other world that sustains so many living entities that we only know a fraction of in the sea, is also a representation of the Lord. Of course, the salt water is very healing for us, and when you get into different spiritual traditions or different religious traditions, water and the ocean is always there, right? In Brazil, we have Yemaya, and we have Oshun, those two deities that are representing the water. I'm sure that there are other things that I have not mentioned. The presiding deity over the water is Varuna in the Vedas. So that is this verse and this chapter for the opulences of the Absolute. It's pretty awesome. I'm going to read it again. Purodhasāṁ cha mukhyam viddhi pārtha bṛhaspatim senānīnām aham skanda sarasām asmi sāgaraḥ, which reminds me, Partha, O son of Pṛthā. So Arjuna is being addressed here in a very intimate way. You know, he is being addressed as the son of Pṛthā. Pṛthā is Lord Krishna's aunt. In this divine relationship that Arjuna and Krishna share with each other, because remember, Prince Arjuna, he's not an ordinary person. His father is the king of heaven. He is actually a part of the Lord's eternal pastimes. And there is a family relationship here. There's a transcendental family relationship here. And so Krishna is addressing Arjuna in this very sweet way, you know, just sort of reminding him in this conversation, you know, how that they are related, you know, that this sweetness. So one day I'm going to have to do a series just on Queen Kunti, because there are a lot of amazing Vaishnavis, and there's a lot of amazing female characters and female energy in the Bhakti Yoga tradition as well, which has just been hinted at here. Queen Kunti is a great soul. She's definitely a Mahajan.